A dream deferred. Introduction to the artist. Darius stood in his small, dimly lit studio, the faint smell of paint and charcoal lingering in the air. His fingers, stained with a rainbow of colors, worked methodically on a canvas. The piece depicted a surreal landscape, a fractured cityscape with rising fists of defiance breaking through the ground, each fist holding symbols of hope, justice, and resilience. The work was deeply personal, born from his experiences as a black man in a world that often ignored voices like his. Art was more than a passion for Darius, it was his lifeline. His love for painting began as a child, sketching scenes of his neighborhood on scraps of paper his mother brought home from her job as a janitor. Over the years, he refined his craft, attending community art workshops and later earning a degree in fine arts. Despite his undeniable talent, Darius found himself struggling to gain recognition. Every rejection letter from galleries stung. Most responses were generic, citing a lack of marketability or claiming his art didn't fit their aesthetic. However, Darius couldn't ignore the underlying bias in some of his encounters, subtle, yet undeniably present. People like him weren't always welcomed in the upper echelons of the art world. Yet, Darius persisted. He scraped by, working part-time at a local coffee shop to afford supplies. His evenings were spent painting, his dreams of sharing his vision with the world keeping him going. The gallery visit. One day, Darius decided to take a bold step. He packed 3 of his best paintings, each carefully wrapped in brown paper, and headed to Golden Horizon Gallery, one of the city's most renowned art spaces. The gallery was known for its high-profile clients and curated exhibitions, and Darius believed his work could shine there. As he stepped into the pristine, white-walled gallery, Darius was immediately struck by the cold, clinical atmosphere. Rows of abstract pieces adorned the walls, their exorbitant price tags displayed prominently. The air smelled faintly of lavender and polished wood. Behind the counter stood Edwin, the gallery's owner. Edwin was tall and impeccably dressed, his demeanor exuding arrogance. His sharp features were framed by glasses perched on the edge of his nose, giving him the look of someone who judged before understanding. Darius approached with a polite smile. "Good afternoon. My name is Darius, and I'm an artist. I'd like to share some of my work with you." Edwin barely glanced at him before scoffing. "We don't take walk-ins. Do you have an appointment?" "I don't, but I was hoping you could take a quick look." "Quick look?" Edwin interrupted, his tone dripping with condescension. "Do you know how many amateur artists walk in here every week, thinking they've created the next masterpiece? We're a professional establishment." Darius felt his cheeks burn. "I understand, but I think my work might interest you." He began to unwrap one of his paintings. "Stop." Edwin held up a hand. "I don't have time for this. Besides, this gallery doesn't cater to street art or political statements." The sting of the words hit Darius harder than he expected. "You haven't even looked at my work." Edwin's smirk widened. "I don't need to. Your type of art, if you can call it that, isn't what our clientele appreciates. Good day." The rejection was like a slap in the face. Darius turned and left, the weight of his paintings heavier than before. As the gallery door closed behind him, he vowed not to let this moment define him. Darius's turning point. That evening, Darius sat in his studio, staring at his unfinished canvas. The memory of Edwin's dismissive tone replayed in his mind, but alongside the anger, there was a flicker of determination. He called Ms. Thompson, his former art professor and longtime mentor. She had been one of the few people to believe in him when others doubted his potential. "Darius, don't let one man's ignorance stop you," she said firmly over the phone. "The world is bigger than one gallery owner. Have you thought about showcasing your work online?" Darius hesitated. "I've never been good with social media." "Then learn," she said. "The internet has given artists a chance to bypass gatekeepers. If you want people to see your work, you need to meet them where they are." Taking her advice to heart, Darius spent the next few weeks building a website and creating accounts on various social media platforms. He photographed his paintings meticulously, ensuring every detail of his work was captured. He shared the stories behind each piece, explaining how they were inspired by struggles for justice, unity, and resilience. At first, there was little response. His posts garnered only a handful of likes, mostly from friends and family. But Darius kept posting, his belief in his art unwavering. Slowly but surely, his work began to attract attention. Comments started pouring in from strangers who were moved by his unique style and powerful messages. Then, one day, everything changed. While scrolling through his email, Darius noticed a message with the subject line, "A collector's inquiry." Curious, he opened it. The email was from Eleanor Hayes, a renowned art collector known for discovering hidden talent. She expressed her admiration for his work, calling it bold, transformative, and exactly what the art world needs. She wanted to discuss purchasing several of his pieces and hosting a private exhibition at her estate. Darius couldn't believe it. After years of rejection, someone with influence had recognized his talent. His hands trembled as he replied, agreeing to a meeting. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for, a chance to prove his worth and finally share his vision with the world. A rising star. Discovery by a renowned art collector. Darius sat at a coffee shop, his laptop open to the email from Eleanor Hayes. The words felt surreal, like a dream he was afraid to wake from. Eleanor Hayes was a name whispered in reverence among artists. Her private collection was legendary, and her sponsorship often launched careers to unprecedented heights. The meeting was scheduled for the following week at Eleanor's sprawling estate. On the day of, Darius arrived nervously, clutching a portfolio of his work. The estate was breathtaking, a modern architectural masterpiece set against lush gardens. Inside, Eleanor greeted him warmly, her presence commanding yet approachable. Eleanor was a woman in her 60s, with sharp eyes that seemed to pierce through the superficial. She gestured for him to sit in her airy, art-filled library. "I've been following your work online," she said, flipping through the printed images of his art. "You have a rare gift, Darius. Your pieces don't just speak, they shout, and they demand to be heard." Darius could hardly believe her words. Eleanor leaned forward. "I want to sponsor your next exhibition. We'll host it here at my estate. I'll handle the invitations, buyers, critics, curators. You just focus on creating." Overwhelmed with gratitude, Darius agreed. Eleanor handed him a check to cover his materials and offered her personal art studio for him to work in, should he need it. "This is your time, Darius," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "Don't hold back." Preparing for the exhibition. The weeks leading up to the exhibition were the busiest of Darius's life. He poured his heart into every piece, using Eleanor's financial support to acquire high-quality materials he'd never been able to afford before. His usual canvas was replaced with fine linen, and his paints were vibrant, professional-grade pigments. Eleanor's influence opened doors Darius hadn't imagined. She introduced him to art suppliers, photographers, and curators, all eager to work with him. He spent hours in her studio, surrounded by natural light and the hum of classical music, letting his creativity flow unimpeded. His art evolved in ways that surprised even him. A particularly striking piece he created was titled "Rising Above," a vivid depiction of a black phoenix soaring above a dystopian city. The colors shimmered with life, and the details captured both struggle and triumph. As the exhibition approached, Eleanor brought in a team of professionals to frame, display, and catalog his work. She also invited Darius to practice presenting his pieces to small groups, helping him refine his ability to articulate the stories behind his art. "You're not just selling paintings," Eleanor advised. "You're sharing a part of yourself. Let them feel your passion." The breakthrough moment. The evening of the exhibition arrived. The estate was transformed into an elegant gallery, with spotlights highlighting Darius's pieces. Guests began arriving in droves, critics, collectors, and celebrities mingled, champagne flutes in hand. Darius stood near the entrance, nervous but composed. Eleanor gave him a reassuring pat on the back. Tonight, you're not just an artist. You're the artist. The night started slow, with guests wandering through the gallery, murmuring among themselves. Then, it happened. A renowned critic, Philip Carrington, stood transfixed before rising above. This? He muttered, summoning his assistant. This is extraordinary. It's a masterpiece of modern expression. Word spread quickly. Guests crowded around the painting, each interpretation adding to its growing mystique. Soon, other pieces began to attract similar attention. Conversations buzzed with excitement, and Eleanor watched proudly as Darius navigated the crowd, answering questions with newfound confidence. By the end of the night, every single piece had sold, many for amounts Darius never imagined. Collectors vied to purchase rising above, driving the price to 7 figures. Eleanor made sure to introduce Darius to influential figures, including curators from major museums and gallery owners from across the country. Each handshake and compliment solidified his place as an artist to watch. As the night drew to a close, Darius stood on the balcony of Eleanor's estate, looking out at the city lights. His chest swelled with pride and gratitude. He'd come so far from his humble beginnings, and now, the world finally saw him for who he was, a visionary artist with a voice that couldn't be ignored. This was only the beginning. Returning to the gallery. Darius's transformation. Darius's life had changed in ways he could never have imagined. His art career skyrocketed after the success of his private exhibition at Eleanor Hayes's estate. His name was now synonymous with innovation, resilience, and social commentary in the art world. Museums showcased his work, high-profile collectors commissioned exclusive pieces, and his art was studied in academic circles. With wealth came opportunity. Darius moved into a spacious loft in the heart of the city, complete with a dedicated art studio. His wardrobe evolved from paint-stained jeans to tailored suits, and he was often invited to elite events and galas. But Darius never lost sight of where he came from or the struggles he had faced. He channeled his success into advocating for diversity and inclusion in the art world. Darius began hosting workshops for young, underrepresented artists, providing them with resources and mentorship. He also funded grants to help struggling artists afford materials and studio spaces. In interviews and public appearances, Darius spoke openly about the barriers he had faced. Talent exists everywhere, he often said. It's opportunity that's scarce. His passion and sincerity resonated, making him not just an artist but a movement leader. The gallery encounter. One sunny afternoon, Darius decided it was time to revisit a chapter of his past. Golden Horizon Gallery, the place where he had once been humiliated, was hosting an auction of contemporary art. This time, Darius wasn't coming as a hopeful artist. He was coming as a buyer. Dressed in a sleek navy blue suit, Darius walked into the gallery with an air of confidence. His polished shoes clicked against the marble floor as he took in the familiar space. Nothing about the gallery had changed, the same pristine white walls, the faint lavender scent, and, behind the counter, the same pretentious owner, Edwin. Edwin glanced up as Darius approached. Not recognizing him, Edwin put on his best salesman's smile. Good afternoon. Welcome to Golden Horizon Gallery. Are you here for the auction, or do you have your eye on something specific? Darius smirked. Just browsing for now. Edwin's eyes scanned Darius's attire and demeanor, quickly assessing him as a wealthy client. Of course. Let me know if you need assistance. We have some exquisite pieces from up-and-coming artists, though I must warn you, the best ones are quite exclusive, and priced accordingly. Darius suppressed a laugh. The irony was almost too perfect. He strolled through the gallery, feigning interest in a few pieces, while Edwin hovered nearby, eager to make a sale. Eventually, Darius stopped in front of a particularly mediocre abstract painting with an exorbitant price tag. This one's interesting, he said, gesturing to the piece. Ah, yes, Edwin said, stepping forward. A very exclusive work by a rising talent. It's priced at $50,000, but I assure you, it's worth every penny. Darius raised an eyebrow. Is that so? You know, I tried to show my work here once. A few years ago. Edwin froze for a moment, then quickly recovered. Really? Well, we're always looking for new talent. If you'd like to submit a portfolio. You told me not to bother, Darius interrupted, his voice calm but firm. You said this gallery doesn't cater to street art or political statements. Remember that? Edwin's confident facade crumbled as realization dawned on him. His face paled as he stammered, I didn't mean. You didn't even look at my work, Darius continued. But that's okay. I found someone who did. The revelation. Edwin's embarrassment was palpable. He adjusted his glasses, his hands fidgeting nervously. Mr. Darius. I mean, Mr. Carter, he stuttered, finally connecting the dots. I had no idea. I mean, your work is extraordinary, and I deeply regret. Save it, Darius said, his tone measured. He wasn't angry, he didn't need to be. The situation spoke for itself. Edwin fumbled for words, desperate to salvage his reputation. Perhaps we could discuss showcasing your work here? Golden Horizon would be honored. Darius held up a hand to stop him. I'm not here to showcase my work. I'm here to buy. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Darius looked Edwin in the eye, his expression unreadable. But not from you, he added. At least, not until this gallery changes. Edwin blinked, confused. Changes? This place needs to be more than a playground for the wealthy, Darius said. It needs to be a space where artists from all walks of life can share their voices. And it starts with people like you recognizing talent instead of dismissing it based on your biases. Edwin swallowed hard, nodding. You're right, he said quietly. I was wrong, and I'd like to make amends. Darius tilted his head, considering. We'll see, he said. But for now, I'm here to enjoy the art. As Darius walked away, Edwin stood rooted in place, humbled and introspective. The tables had turned, and Darius had done it with grace and integrity, justice and redemption. Darius's plans for the gallery. Darius spent the next few weeks reflecting on his encounter with Edwin. While it would have been easy to walk away and let Edwin stew in his regret, Darius couldn't shake the feeling that there was an opportunity to make a meaningful difference. He had spent years fighting for a seat at the table, and now he had the power to create that table for others. He scheduled a meeting with Edwin, requesting a private conversation. Edwin, still embarrassed by their last interaction, agreed immediately, his tone overly polite. They met in the gallery's back office, a space filled with towering shelves of art catalogs and business ledgers. Edwin sat stiffly behind his desk, clearly unsure of what to expect. Darius, he began, his voice tentative, I appreciate you taking the time to. I'm not here for an apology, Darius interrupted, his tone firm but calm. I'm here to propose a partnership. Edwin blinked, surprised. A partnership? Yes, Darius said, leaning forward. This gallery has potential, but it's stuck in the past. Your client base is narrow, your artists lack diversity, and you're missing out on the incredible talent out there. I want to buy a stake in Golden Horizon and use this space to create something new, something inclusive. Edwin's jaw tightened. He was a man who prided himself on control, and the thought of sharing ownership was clearly unsettling. This gallery has been in my family for 3 generations, he said. It's not just a business, it's a legacy. A legacy that's losing relevance, Darius countered. Look around. The art world is changing, and if you don't adapt, this gallery will become a relic. I'm offering you a chance to stay ahead of the curve. Edwin didn't respond immediately, his pride warring with the harsh reality of Darius's words. Edwin's struggle with pride. Over the next several days, Edwin wrestled with the decision. He pored over financial reports, which painted a grim picture. Attendance at the gallery's events had been declining for years, and their last few exhibitions had barely broken even. At the same time, Darius's influence was impossible to ignore. The buzz around his work had drawn new attention to the art world, and collectors were eager to see where he'd invest next. Edwin knew that partnering with Darius could revitalize the gallery, but the idea of ceding control was a bitter pill to swallow. Darius, sensing Edwin's hesitation, invited him to an event he was hosting, a showcase of emerging artists from underrepresented backgrounds. The event was held in a vibrant, community-driven art space, and the energy was palpable. Young artists displayed their work proudly, and the audience was a mix of art enthusiasts, collectors, and everyday people inspired by the talent on display. Edwin wandered through the exhibit, taking in the raw emotion and creativity of the pieces. He saw the connections being formed, the barriers being broken, and, most importantly, the potential for something greater than himself. At the end of the night, Darius approached him. "This is what I want for Golden Horizon," he said. "A space where everyone feels welcome. A place where art isn't just a commodity but a way to bring people together." Edwin sighed, the weight of his pride finally giving way to the truth. "All right," he said quietly. "Let's do it. A new beginning." The partnership was finalized a few weeks later. Darius purchased a 40% stake in Golden Horizon, using his funds to renovate the gallery and revamp its mission. The gallery underwent a complete transformation. Its sterile, elitist atmosphere was replaced with a welcoming, vibrant space that celebrated diversity. Darius and Edwin worked together to curate the first exhibition under their new vision. The theme was Voices Unheard, featuring works by artists from marginalized communities. The opening night was a resounding success, with the gallery packed with attendees from all walks of life. Critics praised the gallery's bold new direction, calling it a beacon of change in the art world. Collectors eagerly purchased pieces, and several artists secured additional opportunities thanks to the exposure. For Edwin, the change was a humbling yet rewarding experience. He began to see art not just as a business but as a force for connection and understanding. His initial doubts faded as he watched the gallery flourish in ways he hadn't thought possible. Darius, meanwhile, continued to use his platform to uplift others. He started a mentorship program through the gallery, pairing established artists with newcomers to help them navigate the challenges of the industry. Golden Horizon Gallery became a symbol of innovation and inclusivity, gaining national recognition for its groundbreaking exhibitions and community impact. As Darius stood in the gallery one evening, watching a young artist nervously present their first piece to a group of collectors, he felt a deep sense of pride. This was what he had dreamed of, not just success for himself, but a path for others to follow. Legacy of change. Darius's impact on the art world. Under Darius's leadership, Golden Horizon Gallery became an artistic revolution. No longer confined to catering to an elite audience, the gallery opened its doors to fresh talent and diverse perspectives. Its exhibitions became must-see events, with people traveling from across the country to witness the groundbreaking works on display. Each new showcase brought voices to the forefront that had long been overlooked. A young painter from a rural community stunned audiences with her haunting landscapes. A sculptor who worked with recycled materials highlighted environmental issues through his creations. Every artist's story became part of the gallery's ethos, art as a means of connection, advocacy, and transformation. Darius also initiated programs to help emerging artists navigate the business side of the art world, offering workshops on pricing, contracts, and marketing. "I don't want anyone to feel as lost as I did," he said in an interview. "Knowledge is power, and we're here to share it." The impact of these efforts rippled far beyond the gallery. Other institutions began to emulate Golden Horizon's model, recognizing the value of inclusivity and community engagement. Darius's journey became a symbol of hope for artists everywhere, inspiring them to pursue their dreams despite the obstacles in their paths. Edwin's redemption. As the gallery evolved, so did Edwin. At first, the transformation was uncomfortable for him. He had spent decades adhering to rigid ideas about art and success, and breaking free of those patterns was challenging. But as he worked alongside Darius, something shifted. Edwin began to see the world through the eyes of the artists they showcased. He listened to their stories, their struggles, and their triumphs. Slowly, the walls he had built around himself, his biases, his pride, began to crumble. One evening, during a gallery event, Edwin found himself speaking with a young artist whose work had sold out within hours. The artist thanked him profusely, tears in her eyes, for giving her a platform she never thought she'd have. "It wasn't me," Edwin said, his voice thick with emotion. "It was Darius. He opened my eyes to what this gallery could be." The partnership between Darius and Edwin became a unique dynamic that captivated the art world. Their collaboration was seen as a bridge between the old guard and the new wave of creativity, and together, they reshaped the industry's landscape. Full circle. 5 years after Darius's first visit to Golden Horizon, the gallery celebrated its transformation with an anniversary exhibition. The theme of the event was Full Circle, highlighting both the gallery's journey and the artists who had flourished within its walls. Darius stood near the entrance, greeting guests as they arrived. The space was buzzing with energy, filled with artists, collectors, and supporters who had become part of the gallery's extended family. At the center of the exhibition was a special installation, Darius's very first artwork, Rising Above. The piece, which had once been a symbol of his struggle for recognition, now stood as a beacon of perseverance and triumph. A plaque beneath the painting shared Darius's story, reminding visitors of the journey that had brought them all there. As Darius looked around, his eyes caught a nervous young artist standing near the refreshments table. The artist, clutching a portfolio, reminded Darius of himself all those years ago. He walked over and introduced himself, putting the artist at ease with his warm demeanor. "Your work brought you here," Darius said after glancing through the portfolio. "And trust me, you're exactly where you're meant to be." The night culminated in a heartfelt speech from Darius. He thanked everyone who had supported the gallery's mission and shared his gratitude for the struggles that had shaped him. "Every rejection, every closed door, it all led me here," he said. "And I wouldn't change a thing." As the crowd erupted in applause, Darius felt a profound sense of fulfillment. His journey had come full circle, but his mission was far from over. He was determined to keep creating, keep inspiring, and keep opening doors for the artists of tomorrow. A legacy beyond the canvas. The ripple effect. Golden Horizon Gallery became more than just a gallery, it became a movement. The innovative programs and exhibitions inspired countless institutions across the country to re-evaluate their approach to curation. Galleries that had once ignored underrepresented voices began to open their doors, eager to be part of the cultural shift Darius had spearheaded. Darius himself became a sought-after figure, not only in the art world but also in broader discussions about equity and representation. He was invited to speak at universities, art festivals, and even global conferences on creativity and inclusion. His speeches resonated far beyond art, touching on themes of resilience, diversity, and the power of storytelling. But Darius didn't stop there. He collaborated with educators to develop art programs for underserved communities, ensuring young people had the tools and encouragement to express themselves through creativity. "Art saved my life," he told a group of students during a workshop. "It gave me a voice when I felt voiceless. And it can do the same for you." Edwin's continued growth. Edwin, once a symbol of the old, exclusionary art world, had become a staunch advocate for change. He used his connections to push for inclusivity in larger institutions, leveraging his influence to create opportunities for artists who had been overlooked. He and Darius formed a bond that transcended their initial animosity. Their partnership became a symbol of transformation, proving that even deeply ingrained biases could be dismantled with effort and openness. In one particularly touching moment, Edwin confided in Darius about his regrets. "I think about that day when you walked in here for the first time," he said. "How many other Darius Carters did I turn away? I'll never know, but I'm grateful I had the chance to make things right with you." Darius smiled. "You're making things right with every artist we bring through these doors. That's what matters." Darius's next chapter. With Golden Horizon thriving, Darius began to think about the future. He wanted to create something even bigger, a foundation that would provide not just artistic opportunities but also scholarships, grants, and mentorship programs for aspiring artists worldwide. The Carter Foundation for Art and Equity launched 2 years later, funded in part by the revenue generated from Golden Horizon's success. The foundation's mission was clear: to eliminate the barriers that had once held Darius back and to ensure that no artist was ever made to feel as invisible as he once had. The foundation's first project was a state-of-the-art community arts center in Darius's hometown. The center provided free classes, studio spaces, and access to professional-grade materials, allowing young artists to develop their skills without financial burden. An unlikely student. One day, while visiting the community arts center, Darius was approached by a young boy holding a sketchbook. The boy, shy but curious, reminded Darius of himself at that age. "Mr. Carter," the boy said softly, "do you think I can be an artist someday?" Darius knelt to meet the boy's gaze. "Not only can you be an artist," he said, "you already are. Show me your work." The boy flipped through his sketchbook, revealing raw but promising drawings. Darius recognized the same spark of creativity that had driven him all those years ago. "You've got something special," he said. "Keep drawing, keep dreaming, and don't let anyone tell you you're not good enough." The boy beamed, and Darius felt a surge of pride. Moments like these were the true measure of his success. The Legacy Exhibition. Years later, Golden Horizon celebrated its 10th anniversary under Darius's leadership with a special legacy exhibition. The event brought together hundreds of artists whose careers had been launched or transformed by the gallery. Each artist contributed a piece that told their story, creating a powerful tapestry of voices and visions. At the heart of the exhibition stood Rising Above, now a permanent centerpiece of the gallery. Surrounding it were new works by artists inspired by Darius's journey. One piece, a vivid painting of a young boy looking up at a phoenix, caught Darius's eye. It was by the same boy he'd met years earlier at the Community Arts Center, now a successful artist in his own right. As Darius stood in the gallery, surrounded by the fruits of his labor, Edwin approached him with a glass of champagne. "You've built something incredible," Edwin said. "We've built it," Darius corrected, clinking his glass against Edwin's. Grateful reflection. As the evening wound down, Darius stepped outside for a moment of quiet reflection. He looked up at the night sky, his mind flooded with memories of the journey that had brought him here, the struggles, the rejections, the triumphs. He thought of the young artists he had mentored, the lives he had touched, and the legacy he was building. And he felt nothing but gratitude. The road hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every step. And as long as there were voices waiting to be heard, stories waiting to be told, and art waiting to be created, Darius knew his work was far from over.